Ever since I found out I could talk to my grandpa in the afterlife through a psychic medium, I realized he has so many nuggets of wisdom to share with me, which I hope to share with you guys. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe down below. If you have any questions for Grandpa Luan, comment below and they might be featured in our next video. So thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoy.
Okay, another new episode for Talking with Grandpa Luan, and today we're going to talk about feminine problems and the womb energy. First, the feminine problems are going to be things that I thought of in the shower or in the car that I've been curious about, but then there's the womb energy, which he wanted to talk about once in a previous session offline that he really wanted to emphasize about. So, I'm just going to start off and say, why do periods sync up? I've been trying to Google, couldn't find any exactly scientific research about this, but I know we all know it's a real thing. So yeah, why do periods sync up? And also, do they seem to align? Let's say like you're with a group of girlfriends, right? Do they usually align with the person with like the strongest energy or like the leader of the group? So I remember someone asking me that, and I thought that'd be a very interesting experiment to do.
Your suspicions are correct, he's saying.
Oh.
It was interesting because he said, yeah, quantum physics would probably have better explanation eventually on this than he's saying, how do you say it? Various other types of scientific professionals, because they're not thinking in the right framework. They're trying to find a purely hormonal, chemical, biochemical, biological reason.
Kind of like
but
physical.
It's actually right. And so they're kind of just, they know there's something there, but they can't see it because they're not in the right area of study, and so they're not looking for certain things that someone, let's say in quantum physics, could actually break down eventually one day. So he's saying the reason why I'm saying quantum physicists would have a better answer for this is because, oh shit, hi! Einstein just jumped in. This is crazy. What in the world?
Well,
oh my, that was random.
Thank you for visiting. Is he just sitting
actually
there?
Wants to speak on.
Oh.
He just popped in. He's just like, hi. Wow, that's.
How's he look? Does he look frazzled, like with the crazy scientist hair and everything?
Yeah, he has the gray hair, but
with like the
he
mustache.
has like a little sweater, like a cardigan type thing, with a little collared shirt kind of popping out, and some looks like maybe khakis with some brown shoes.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of smiling, kind of because he's like being mischievous.
Okay.
He just has that energy. Grandpa's totally
just kind of come through like, well, actually, I have something to say.
Yes.
Okay.
That was hilarious. He just freaking came in. Okay,
Didn't even knock on the door. Okay.
Because what I set the intention before I started. We are recording a series right now, and I said, for anybody else, I'm setting the intention to get the most accurate, beneficial information for the people watching this from not only Grandpa Luan, but from anyone else who Grandpa is okay with jumping in as well. Your grandpa's very entertained by this. And so he's saying he wants Albert to take it away on this particular subject.
Please do. This is awesome.
Okay. Oh, wow. I'm kind of starstruck right now. I love Einstein. Okay. So he's saying that... I'm sorry. He's so funny. He just whips out he just manifests this old school chalkboard. Okay. You know, the ones that flip over?
Yes.
And it's on a stand.
And it's green or black, yes.
It's green and has a piece of chalk. And he's starting to draw waves of waves of influence, he's calling them.
Okay.
So he's drawing these waves of influence, and he's showing this wave is a looser wave, this wave is a tighter wave, this wave has bigger magnitude, this wave has smaller magnitude. And he's saying that the person, now he's like, now let's break it down and talk about how, I'm sorry, he said it with an accent, and it was just so funny. He was like, women. It's really cracking me up. This is taking a funny turn. Okay.
Yes, what about women?
It's funny because they don't always show me their accents, but I think he thinks it's funny. Okay, so saying the reason why women have this thinking is because he's, let's say a woman named, he's just telling me to choose a name. Okay. He's saying, let's say Anna has a, her wave of influence is a smaller magnitude. And so he's like kind of redrawing the smaller wavelength.
So is a wave of influence like a wave of energy or more like influence power? So kind of like a little bit dominant.
It's an energetic. So he's saying if we were to measure this energy on an instrument, we would see that people have varying waves of, he's saying, I would like to just call it waves of influence, but this is just what I'm calling it, he's saying. But it's really, if he said you want to break it down into different terms, he's saying the waves of influence I'm speaking of are actually, you could say, strengths of people's magnetic fields.
Okay.
And he's saying every living thing has a magnetic field, and we can measure this now. However, the correlation comes from when magnetic fields interact with one another, the one with the greater magnitude can overpower the one with the smaller magnitude.
Okay.
And so he's saying in a community environment, women will be subject to the female with the higher wave of influence.
Okay.
Energetically. And he's saying that animals use the same wave of influence, let's call it, to determine who's the alpha.
Okay.
So chemically, there are other things at play as well in regards to how, I'm sorry, I'm looking over here because he's just over here. He's saying there's biochemical aspects that come into play when we're talking about the selection of an alpha in a group of animals, let's say. So at work, he's saying not only will your period be subject to the woman in your office with the largest wave of influence, the bigger magnitude wave, he's saying that also the way you feel around them will be influenced by the wave of the wave of influence. Like he's saying, like how you feel around them. And he said sometimes you can feel irritated around or overpowered by or over just kind of, there's, even if they're not necessarily doing anything, if their presence feels overpowering to you in some way or agitating. And he's saying it's the energy fields are, if you're operating on different, he's saying literal wavelengths, your signatures are so different that when they come together, they can create a strange effect on the body. And so in this particular case, he's saying the periods will sync up based on the person with the biggest wave of influence. But he's saying in males, the same thing happens, but they don't have periods. So it's really more of, he's saying, you know how when you see a group of men and there's always like one guy, you can call him the alpha, but all the other guys he made his friends because people tended to come around him.
Okay.
So it's this his magnitude was greater, his wave of influence, so he attracted people to kind of look up to him.
Okay.
So when he said it, he's calling it social dynamics. Social dynamics. He's saying it plays a part in social dynamics in male and females, not just periods. And he's saying this will be uncovered by science later down the line, but that I said quantum physics, that's why, because he's passionate about quantum physics.
Well, I hope the scientists find this YouTube video in the future and be like, they were right.
Well, I was told once that one of my guides, by a medium, that one of my guides is Einstein.
Awesome. I'm so surprised. I mean, I'm so excited that he's here. This one, okay, so why do some people have more painful periods than others? You know, what can they do about it? Like, what's a good fix? Obviously, sometimes people say, oh, it's genetics. My mom, my grandma had really bad, painful, long cramps and periods and stuff like that. But I guess on an energetic, spiritual level, why does it some people seem to be, I don't want to say unlucky, but they seem to have this worse than others?
Einstein's passing this back over to Grandpa. Thank you.
Okay.
Come back again sometime. Okay, so
for now.
Oh, he just wants to stay and watch. Okay. That's fine.
That is so cool.
Oh, that just made my day. So, Grandpa is saying it has to do with trauma in the body. A lot of times. That's why he loves to talk about the womb energy so much. He's saying trauma comes in the form of energetic trauma. It physically affects the body. But we think in terms of maybe genetics a lot. And genetics can play a part in this, but he says there's also ancestral damage that comes from generations of women before that woman who have had trauma. And it can be, he said, you see this a lot with families where at some point in the family, and there's a lot of women who've encountered this, so you see this quite a bit, where in the line somewhere there was at least one of the females that came before the one complaining about the problems was abused by a man in some way, where they were over-dominated, they had a domineering father.
So let's say, like, for example, I say I have a friend, and she hasn't had, like, I don't think she's had trauma. So would you say that because of this ancestral trauma, she's kind of inherited, and that's why it's affecting her body as well, even though she wasn't abused or whatever in whatever way?
But he's saying the abuse doesn't even have to be explicit, in meaning like the abuse doesn't have to be like someone molested somebody. He said it could also be about the way the trauma can come from the way the woman feels in society, the role that if she feels that, especially if she feels her voice is not heard, if she feels like men are always dominating, if she feels like she finds that she gets maybe intimidated when she's, let's say, at work trying to compete with a man for a job, but there's something in there subconsciously that affects the way she views her role as a woman in society. Wow. That can cause the energy, can cause a stifling in the womb area, which also covers the ovaries, the uterus, and also there's, oh wow, that's interesting. He's saying endometriosis, for example, can be about a female who was raised where in a household where there wasn't a lot of boundaries with, and it could even be, again, ancestral, but let's say the women always had to kind of like pick up after the men. They always have to like keep things together, and there wasn't a lot of boundaries between their lives and the men that they had to work with or manage, and they always felt like they had to put their needs last because the men had to do whatever they're doing. And so the women felt kind of like a lack of boundaries, because he's saying what happens physically is endometriosis is caused when the tissue starts to attach to other parts, other organs, let's say, that are not the uterus. And that can cause that's basically endometriosis, and they can cause pain, they can cause all these issues menstrually. So he's saying that that is another thing that you see, lack of boundaries.
Wow.
And it creates, guess what? The uterus does not have boundaries. It's encroaching on other areas, other organs, and it's attaching to things it shouldn't be attached to. That fucking just blew my mind. Grandpa.
Yeah, I know.
Whoa. Okay.
It also is PMS. I mean, I know a woman would be like, yes, it is a real thing, but I'm just gonna, for the purpose of this show episode, I want to ask: is PMS a real thing, or is it something that's psychological? And if why do we get it? Because it is really annoying. I do get cranky before I get it, and I also my boobs get sore, and I'm sure other people have so many other things too.
Oh, that's an interesting thing. It's absolutely real, but there's many reasons that cause PMS. And sometimes there could be many reasons, not only physical, energetic, hormonal, hormonal's kind of, let's say chemical.
Okay.
He said there could be a lot of things at once in play, and it can also be energetic purely, even in some people. So he's saying in society, women do not, he said there's some women that are trying to change the way we see our periods and trying to create profit, but historically the period has been seen as a burden. And since it is so uncomfortable and painful for a lot of women, or it just doesn't come often, it doesn't come at all, and people don't feel womanly or something because they don't get their period enough, or they get it too much and they're bleeding out, basically.
Yeah.
He's saying it feels like a burden because it's hard, especially, let's say if you're on the heavier side, you feel like you can't do certain activities, or sometimes you may not be able to go to work because you're in so much pain, or the PMS is so bad. Then when the period comes, it's cramping and migraines and pain and swelling and all these weird things, mood changes, you feel like a nut job. Like he's saying it feels like it makes you painfully aware of the negative aspects of being a woman, and there's already so many things that people are frustrated with about how women are treated in society, so there's a resentment towards the period. So he's saying if women instead learn to cherish their periods, it would help to reduce their PMS symptoms because they are creating a positive relationship with that period instead of a hatred and a frustration, and then just always predicting how bad their periods are going to be. Oh, the period's going to come any day, and oh my God, it's going to be, oh, I can't go to that cool beach party because, I got my period. It just ruins everything. Or, oh my God, I'm about to get married and my period came, and oh well, there goes our wedding night. Like how many brides have had to deal with that? But he's basically saying it's not our fault that we feel this way about our period. It's society has made it extremely uncomfortable. And he said, at least American women have access to all these different alternative period devices, he's saying, calling it.
Yeah.
But he's saying in other countries, they don't even have, not even basic sanitary.
Yeah. Pads or
They can't, they have to be locked up in the house. There's a sense of shame about it. So he's saying globally, there's a mindset about a period that it's a burden. And he said some women used to call it like equivalent of a curse. It's like a curse of woman, and actually even people link it even back to Adam and Eve, he's saying, and this is a punishment because so there's religious aspects that cause generations of women to view it as a punishment. It's heavy, and he's saying it's going to take a long time for us to break it down, but individually we can start to view it differently, and we can start to celebrate our periods, and we can have parties per period, and then sorry. Albert's just like, because he's just standing over there. And he's saying and when the person with the biggest wave of influence, causes all your periods to sync up, you might as well have a party. That's cute.
Funny.
So
yeah, I definitely met some people I've met through conferences or just through friends of friends where they're starting to do kind of empowerment through periods, and not, kind of like getting to companies where I'm making period devices where they're not going to be shamed and whatnot. So, especially there's a lot of women out there that are still trying to figure out their cycle and everything and are frustrated. And that's pretty promising, and that's awesome. In terms of I guess for I'm gonna go more of like self-care kind of route right now. So in terms of like exercises and types of diets, what are things that can help a person spiritually? For example, what's one or two huge things to improve the body spiritually, like meditation, yoga, bodybuilding, hiking, running?
Yeah, he's saying anything that can invoke mindfulness is great. So he's saying, oh yes, hiking can create mindfulness. Yoga can create mindfulness. Anything that encourages the connection with your body in a positive way. Swimming, any kind of exercise that's not, he's making a clear distinction here. He's saying that exercise cannot be about surrounded by the feeling that you're not enough and you have to do 1,000 squats to make your butt bigger so that you can look like, you can look hot. He's saying it is not the same thing when you're exercising for society or for someone else or because you feel like you're not enough. But when you're exercising to be at one, to have your own personal space, to invigorate yourself, that's good. That's healing exercise.
Wow. Okay.
Huh. So anything
like the intention,
that positive, yeah,
the motive behind it really matters.
Absolutely.
Okay. Wow. I love getting massages, and so I'm going to say, like, what does a massage do to the body and energetically, I guess?
Okay, so he says massage is energy work, and so a lot of masseuses have a feeling that this happens, but many of them don't actually acknowledge that they're doing energy work. They call it body work, but really it's energy work. Wow. And so what they're doing is they're opening meridians in the body that were energy channels that are blocked and moving energies around to balance them out. And so and a lot of them have healing hands. So they're actually they're healing people without realizing it with their energy, moving those powerful healing hands throughout your body, relaxing. And when their hands come in contact, it is about the technique, but also that the fact that they have the intention to heal you through massage, and also the muscles have a reaction where they kind of melt when they come in contact with someone with healing hands, and the nerves calm down. And so it's a multi-aspect. There's multiple aspects of massage because it really is an form of energy healing.
Okay. And then why is it that women seem to seek more pamperingness more than men? So, my girlfriends and I are always like, I need to go for a massage now. Oh, I need to go to the spa. I just need time for myself. But I rarely hear men say this. And is it because men are just, they need it too, but they're just kind of like denying it, or more like men have different alternatives on how they can release this, pamper themselves? I don't know if it's through sports, gym, that kind of thing.
Grandpa's being funny today. As you were bringing that up, he was laying in a spa bed with the cucumbers on his eyes, and he was with the cucumbers on his eyes. I would have never done this in life, but I wish I had. He's saying that why? He's like, I will use myself as an example. He said culturally there were some things that were accepted that men can have done, like certain types of massage that were accepted in my culture, for example. And usually it was by a woman, as a practitioner.
Okay.
Because women are nurturing and it's acceptable to get a massage from a woman because it's a woman and I'm a man, And he's saying there is a certain... He's talking about men have burdened themselves with this idea that that's a luxury. Like, I'm the hardworking man. I support the family. And he says, true. He's saying I use the word paradigm a lot. So he said, well, go ahead. It's a paradigm. The paradigm of I am the man who has to work and support my family. I don't have time for women luxuries, or luxuries that women get. And see, he said it kind of started historically historically women. Oh, that's crazy. Okay, so he's going, let's go way back in time. Why is it that it seems like women were ones getting these treatments, these beauty treatments? And he said it started to please the man. It wasn't self-care as much as it was preservation, meaning they wanted to keep the attention of their husbands, and or attract.
To look good and still look young and all that kind of stuff. Okay.
Yeah, or their families put pressure on them to look a certain way so they could attract the husband because that was kind of your way to survive and
be taken care of and all
generations.
That. Okay.
And he's like, and he said, and if you look around the world, they do it very differently, all around the world, very differently. But there's a common thread to it. He's saying, oh, the Greeks and the Romans, and he's saying the Chinese and the Middle Eastern cultures enjoyed the idea. Well, he's saying Asia in general, and then he's saying, the Nordic kind of region.
Mm-hmm.
The Nordics, those cultures tended to really, like, it was acceptable for men to go in baths, like rejuvenating baths.
Oh, like sauna.
Type of sauna.
Yeah.
Like that was acceptable, and that was actually seen as a men's activity, as like a sacred men's activity. And he's saying that was something where men can get together and talk and discuss things that they couldn't talk about in front of women, you know.
Oh, okay.
And that was kind of seen as a masculine thing, whereas women had other things. They were more of like facial treatments, powders, types of shape.
Skin. Got it.
And he said it morphed and changed over the years, but now, because of society, the roles are becoming more neutral, which is a good thing in the long run. He's saying that there's opportunity for men. Men are seeing there's not as much of a stigma around it, so they try it and they're like,
it's great. I know. I'm like,
that's why he's saying, ooh, like, I would have loved this if I had felt like it was okay to do this.
Yeah. And that's why the girls usually drag the guys and say, like, come on, let's do a couples massage.
There's a sense of pride, like, oh, I'm a man, I don't need this girly stuff.
Interesting. Okay, ego. So, you know, when you're going a little bit back on exercising, it's more in terms of mindfulness, not for show or for like looks related. What are self-care tips people can do at home to spiritually kind of detox and change the energy in terms of like diet? So we did talk about exercise, but how about diet? And also, how long would it take to kind of see results energetically, spiritually?
You're talking about, sorry, he was showing me so many things. Just through diet, can we help some of these issues with the female stuff?
Or just how to detox the body, yeah.
Detox.
Yeah.
The body. Yeah, he was showing me, one of the things he was really showing me was like, it wasn't like a diet thing, it was, he's saying people like to put essential oils in the shower, on the shower floor. And he's saying eucalyptus sparingly used while you're in the shower creates like a vapor. Like he said, be careful if you're allergic, you know, we want to make sure if you have any kind of allergies to be careful, but eucalyptus, if you're not sensitive to it, has a very cleansing effect on the body. We understand eucalyptus is sinuses, but it has a cooling effect also. But it cleanses inside out.
Aromatherapy.
Eucalyptus aromatherapy is very invigorating. Okay. He's saying you can combine it with lemon, and but he said be careful. Lemon essential oil, just make sure you don't do it on something that could stain or whatever, and be careful how you diffuse it and stuff. But you say practices, but he's saying eucalyptus and lemon, especially together, have a very cleansing effect on the body when it's inhaled or in a vapor or whatever, or just smelling it, like sniffing, or using products that have safe doses of those scents in them and stuff. But he's also saying spinach juice, celery juice, And then he's saying cayenne for people who can handle it. Oh, it's funny. My parents take that cinnamon. They do cinnamon and cayenne together. Parsley, cilantro. He's saying parsnips. Was that a parsnip? He's showing me the long white, those white, well, not horseradish, but it's like a root vegetable, but it's like a long white. It looks kind of like a white carrot, but it's a root vegetable. You can chop it up.
Yeah, I think that's parsnip. Yeah.
Parsnip. In a soup, it's really like in a nice broth. And he's saying mint water, mint tea. Watermelon sometimes. Says don't binge on it, but it can be very cleansing. And then he's saying there's something red. He's pomegranate, not like pasteurized, like actual pomegranate.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's saying he's kind of showing me like, okay, so he's saying you can get like a big thing of water and put like a little bit of honey and lemon and ginger.
I feel like I should just go to my local press juicery or something like that, because it's like stuff they all sell there.
Yeah.
I'll make it at home, but it sounds like everything in a juicery store.
He's saying there's a lot of things out there that are available that are known, but he's just trying to give some options with familiar things that people can find.
Yeah, awesome.
Dragon fruit. I always wondered about that one.
Yeah, I kind of want to go now into the womb energy, which is something you told us that you really wanted to talk about. So what do you want to talk about to us or to the world to let us know about the womb energy? First of all, what is it? Because I was confused when you told us about it. And what did you mean when you told us that the power of the womb energy is underestimated?
So he's saying we discussed part of it during the period conversation, but he's saying, he said, remember I talked about the ancestral damage to the female energy that affects the womb, but now there's a resurgence of people trying to understand their womb energy better, meaning that's kind of the chassis, it's a weird word to use, of the female energy and empowerment. He says, fine, you could say vessel, but think of it as like, he said the uterus is kind of like a bowl.
Okay.
And it holds the potential, he says, for new life. It holds the potential for great healing. And it holds the potential for great power. He said it holds things. So, oh wow, he's saying, so if it holds things, okay. It's so interesting. So he's saying, if I were to drop something on a flat surface and there was an edge to it, it would roll off.
Okay.
Hit the floor. If I were to drop something over a bowl, it would likely stay in the bowl.
Yep.
He says this is both the power and also the downfall of the uterus shape. Think of it energetically as a bowl, and it can hold the positive things like power, female empowerment, sexuality, and just in general empowerment. But it could also hold negative. It can trap
trauma.
Women hold a lot of the negative emotions in their womb. And that's why interesting. Okay, so he's saying, that stereotype where women are like, they don't want to have sex because they're like, oh, I have a headache, right? He's saying that's women there's a negative association with sex that they're holding in their wombs, and they're saying,
I thought that was because they were too tired.
well, check this out. Sometimes, a lot of times, yeah, it can be, but if you, oh, that's funny.
It's funny because I've never talked to him about this, obviously, in the real. I was too young, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, oh.
He says, I wouldn't have talked about this when I was alive, any time of your age. He's like, if I was still alive, there's no way I would talk to you about this. But he's saying that women. Oh. Okay, so he's talking about how women, yeah, legitimately, women can just be like, no, I don't feel like it. But then they can also make stuff up, like, because there's a disconnect. Like, maybe they don't feel that there's sanctity in the sexual relationship. They maybe the male is dominating that, and they trap that resentment in the womb. It can lower the libido. It can lower their general openness to that. And he's saying women are trying to find that power again, where they can put it in the ball in their court, and they kind of go the other extreme and they start sleeping with all kinds of random people, let's say. Okay. And he's saying, like, you have free will to do what you want, but that you are absorbing the energy from all the people you sleep with, and that gets trapped in the hole.
Always? Forever? Or until you kind of, like, let it go?
You have to release it.
Okay. And what is an example of someone, like, I'm going to use Nancy again as example, the name Nancy, as, like, what is an example of her releasing this resentment or trauma from, like, a guy that she's been with? Is it just kind of like, for example, so, you know, everyone watching can understand, like, oh, I'm over him. I'm done. Just so people can understand better.
Yeah. So let's say Nancy has had a string of bad relationships and she never had, like, great positive sexual experiences. Okay. Maybe she had a few, but they're few and far between. And she just kept searching, and she could never find the right thing. And she held that resentment in her bowl. That's the womb. And she never talks to anyone about it. She never gets together with other women and tries to find it positive, empowering things to show themselves that they're not the people they've dated. Like, they are a unique, powerful person full of potential, and that their femininity is beautiful and amazing. Instead, they've let the negative male energy kind of dominate, and it can go into things like extreme feminism and anything extreme, where it's like any kind of, like, man hating, or any kind of, like, you know, overdoing it on the sexuality front, where, like, you're not having healthy sexual relationships, you're just having empty whatever, and it doesn't make you feel powerful at the end of the day once you kind of look back at it all. So Nancy, let's say, has accumulated all these really negative experiences, and she doesn't have an outlet for it. She doesn't do anything for herself. Like, she works too much. She kind of just becomes a workaholic because she can't really deal with everything, and she can't really these things and make them not abstract. They're just these abstract feelings and stuff. She doesn't really know where it's coming from. So what's really good for women, especially who have just kind of lost themselves in the relationships, like poor relationships and stuff, and work, it's good to have therapy. It's good to also join groups of women that are trying to enact positivity in the way we perceive ourselves as female. It's good for them to take time to do things that give her pleasure and give her comfort outside of a man. And it's also good for regression therapy is really good. You don't have to have had some singular traumatic event to get regression done. It could just be things that you didn't realize triggered a cascade effect of negativity, and all gets trapped in the womb. He's saying, hey, tell that one instance that you observed. So there's a time in high school, I had a coach that was also used to be a personal trainer, and she used to do also, like, she used to rehabilitate people and stuff too. And she was working with me because I've always had very tight hips, and it was affecting my performance as a swimmer. So she saw that I had that problem, and so she would work on me, and I was the only one on the team that had this problem. And so she would, like, stretch me in front of everyone before swim meets. And she said, okay, before the first time she ever did it, she warned me. She said, I'm warning you. For some reason, women specifically tend to just start crying when I do this hip stretch, because women carry all this emotion in their hips.
She said that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And he's saying, like, she was on something. And so I didn't cry. I was just like, oh, this feels good. But she said it's more common than not that women will just burst into tears or just start panicking or something, because that area is, they just were just like, that's the no-no zone, you know? And we've become disconnected from that part of our body. And so she's releasing that energy because the hips are connected to the womb energy in women, because they are affected by childbearing and things. It's a little different than the way men, their hips are attached to their body in an energetic sense too. So he's saying that's an example, but what she was really unknowingly doing was releasing pent-up womb energy. So he's saying hip stretches are great. He said things like that can come out in yoga, Kundalini yoga, he's saying too. We're doing Kundalini work and working with crystals, working with, oh, I'm too shy to say this. Okay.
Oh.
Because he's saying I've done research on this already, but I'm just like, so there's healing, womb healing implements you can use that are made of crystal that women can use for their.
I think I've heard about this, like reading in articles.
Like
is it kind of
yoni
like
eggs?
Yeah, kind of like
they're like crystal eggs.
They're like crystals that you can insert in yourself. Got it.
Exactly. And you just let it hang out there, and like they come in different sizes.
No,
but he's saying like
around,
that does help.
Yeah, like
that
crystal articles and stuff.
Yep.
I don't know where, but I was like, oh, interesting. I wonder if that works. But the comments say
That's,
they're like amazing. Rose quartz is great.
That's
like
that's the best.
Love and self-love. Yeah, and I was like, huh.
That's one for women.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's saying he recommends the more. Yeah. He said the pastel. Yeah. The rose quartz is really perfect for the female.
Yeah.
Not because it's pink. He's saying it's the energy it gives off and what it works on. He's saying he suggests things like that and getting to know your body better and things like that. So he's saying there's a lot of things you can do, but therapy is very important. Being heard, because a lot of women don't feel heard. Working through, if you've had abuse, most women have been sexually harassed, unfortunately. Working through that, even things that you kind of brushed off, just working through those things with a professional or an energy healer, things like that, or working through it with a group of women that are trying to seek empowerment together and having a place to talk about this stuff. He's saying that will help to release the pent-up womb energy. And he's saying, but at the same time, think of the bowls. You could store power there. You could store, he said, you might hear people from, old school women kind of talk about, there being like a power down there that kind of, makes men kind of a little dumb sometimes, because there's something there that is powerful, and it's just a magnetism.
So this question just it just popped in my head. But in a world where all women have empowerment and like womb energy that they've worked through and it's all positive now, there's nothing negative in the bowl, what would the world look like if all women were like that?
My.
I'm just curious.
I want to talk about goddess energy, man.
Oh, okay.
Imagine these seriously, the word goddess is what he's saying.
Oh.
Like, imagine these women who stand tall. They ask for what they feel they deserve. They go for what they want in life. They demonstrate their needs outwardly. Let's say they're a mother. And I was just talking to someone about this the other day about their mother, and we were talking about there's like a lack of balance a lot of times between parents. And a lot of times women are like, oh my God, like I have to do it myself because I can't rely on husband. And there's all this kind of negative, kind of reinforcing that stereotype, and we're not working through it. We're just continuing generations of that.
Yeah, like putting up with it. Okay.
So he's saying, imagine when the women are standing tall saying to the husband, no, I need this. You can do that too, but I need this as well. And we're going to come up with a system together so that we both can have, full lives and have children. Additionally, imagine, he's saying like women being able to breastfeed in public, like that's just a one of the things that is a good step forward for women. There's like, I guess there's a law passed that they can now breastfeed in public. I think anywhere in the United States now. And that was a big deal. So imagine women just being able to be a mother and not be ashamed of that kind of natural, very natural thing.
Yeah.
But also being able to, wow, that's interesting. So he's saying, imagine a world where it's not weird that a woman is a CEO. We're not like, oh, she's the first woman CEO, like it's some like token, whatever. It's imagine where it's like, oh yeah, like we don't categorize them like that, like CEOs or leaders as like, oh, she's the first woman or she's a woman. It's just normal. It's just like what women and men are equally, getting these opportunities, and it doesn't matter. There's no pay gap. There's no pay gap where women are not standing up for themselves, not asking for the raises that their male counterparts are asking for. Imagine a world where there's innovation happening because women are using their nurturing instincts, and also there's certain ways they view details, and the certain ways they can see things that see men and women have their gifts, and one of the gifts is the way women can see things through the lens of that nurturing nature. Some women have it more than others, but also the way we see details, the way we see potentials, and being able to harness that in science and math and food related industries, and just kind of creating that change that we need, because they're going to ask more questions as to like, why are we doing this? Is it really for the profit? They're going to bring more of that humanitarian, softer. They're firm, strong, but like their energy is, they're not afraid to show that nurturing side of them and change the way companies work, change the way society works and legislation.
Wow.
And they have a sense of justice and fairness that's there'd be a little more balance, especially in like the courts, the judicial system, and things like that. And it's so cool, because in this world he's showing me, nobody's like, oh, she's a woman and she's in that field, like, well, women aren't good at that, or like another
like
calling out
female engineer is normal, or like
exactly.
female scientists.
Not like, oh, we need more female engineers because there's not enough for female scientists or female mathematics. It's just everyone is equally respected, man or woman. And he's saying it's a world where women are stronger, not a world where men are diminished. Yeah. It's a world where the energies have found a beautiful balance. And he says you can talk about the yin and the yang energy.
It's like they're equal.
Mm-hmm. And they're necessary, but we haven't learned as a society how to complement. We have disparaged. Yeah. And
it'll take time.
But either. So we have to counterbalance, and it'll take time. It will, but it's possible.
Awesome. Well, thank you. This is such a lovely topic to talk about. I think for anyone watching, and just for the world to know about. So thank you so much. Okay, until next time. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Grandpa. Thanks, Albert.